Hello, Ruby here. If you are new to this channel, I am professional psychic, tarot reader, archetypal astrologer, and a big tarot nerd. One might even say a tarot addict. And this is going to be my favorite tarot decks of 2023 list. I already made this video talking about my favorite oracle decks of 2023. So if you're interested in learning what those are, you can find that video on my channel. And how this list works is these are all my favorite tarot decks that I purchased in 2023. So there are other decks I worked with this year. I just didn't purchase them this year, so they're not on this list. Nor is this like an exhaustive my favorite tarot decks of all time list, though several of these decks I will be speaking to would fit into that category as well. And I will say a lot of these decks I purchased, I'd say half of these decks I purchased January, February of this past year. And even the ones I purchased recently, I've spent a lot of time with, a lot of time working with. So I'd say I have a really good handle of how these decks read, how I like to work with them, what their sweet spot is, and I will definitely speak to that as I move through this list. Though I will say this is my second time filming this. The first time I was 30 minutes through and not even halfway through the list. So, I'm gonna have to edit a little bit all my thoughts to keep this video at a reasonable length. But all of these decks are so good, so potent. It's hard to not just wax poetic on how much I love them for hours. I'm really lucky that I just some really beautiful, some really special decks came into my life. And so, if any of these decks speak to you, just know they have a very special place in my heart, and I 100% recommend them to you if you are on a tarot journey as well. So in fifth place, we have Tarot of the Abyss by Anna Turian. It's published by US Games. It comes in this sassy little black box. I can't really speak much to the guidebook because I just didn't feel a pull to work with it. There's some other decks on this list that have just like bananas good guidebooks. I wouldn't really put this in that category, though I would say it's decent. I spent a little bit of time with it in the beginning, but I felt really much more pull to work with this deck intuitively. So, I would say if you're newer to tarot, use it as a resource. If you love to work with the guidebooks, use it as a resource, but you won't be purchasing this deck for the guidebook. You'll be purchasing it for the bananas good artwork. This is the card backings. This is a black and white deck. And I just was so surprised by how much I loved this deck. I think it is so unique. I think the card interpretations through the artwork, how this deck creator sees the cards is so unique. And I will say, at this point in my journey as a tarot practitioner and someone that works with the cards, for professionally, I'm working with, the tool of tarot, 5-6 days a week. When I'm adding a new deck to my collection, I'm really not interested in a regurgitation of Rider-Waite-Smith artwork. I'm not interested in a deck that doesn't really have anything new to say, but a deck that can open my eyes to tarot in a new way and that can shed new light on a card meaning. That is what I'm looking for in a new deck. That is such a beautiful life-enhancing experience. And I think this deck does just that. Look at this Ten of Swords. We don't normally see two figures in the Ten of Swords. And just so the fresh interpretation by the deck creator, not only does it open up the card meaning in a new way, but as a seasoned tarot practitioner, I feel like it gives me this opportunity to sink in to the tarot meaning, the meaning of the card, and even analyze if there's something more to this meaning that I haven't discovered yet. And that is so exciting. This is one of my favorite Eight of Cups, and Eight of Cups is one of my favorite cards. And, like I've been speaking to, this artwork really captures the essence of what the Eight of Cups means, but in a way that almost turns it on its head, which is so exciting as a reader. And so I very much recommend this deck to seasoned tarot practitioners. There's a few cards that I don't really love the artwork. The Four of Wands and the Six of Wands, I'm not super big fans of, but most of the artwork in this deck is just, look at this Death card. It's just so profound to me. And even in the cards I don't like as much, I feel the meanings have been accurately presented. We're just not going as deep as some of the other interpretations in this deck. You know, this deck is called Tarot of the Abyss, and it's black and white, one of my favorite Six of Swords. But I don't consider this to be an overly confronting deck or to be like a shadow work deck. Quite the contrary. I find myself reaching for this deck when I want to draw cards, but maybe I'm feeling a little anxious. And I think everyone that works with tarot has the experience of like, almost sometimes we're just like scared of what the cards have to say. This is a good one to work for or work with when you're in that place, like the Nine of Swords. Because I think you're going to get the truth in a really compassionate, non-judgmental way. Not that you're not going to get that from other decks, but I find this deck to be a truth teller in a way that is very sweet and compassionate. This deck also has two, I want to say it's 2 Three of Swords and 2 Ten of Swords. And I leave both versions of those cards in the deck because I feel they're both coming into that energy of both those cards in a different way. So I do feel like there's a slightly different interpretation or wisdom to be gleaned. And I keep them both in the deck for that reason. Look at that Hierophant. So, and I love this star. So good. I'm actually feeling called to work with this deck right now. I put it away for a little bit to work with some other decks, and this morning I woke up and I was like, I need to work with Tarot of the Abyss. I gotta do some work with this deck. See, this is, I don't love this Four of Wands. I get it, but there's so many other cards in this deck that just, they go so deep that there's almost a little bit of disappointment that those cards don't do that. But altogether, like, not disappointing. Like that's my little nitpick. Such a beautiful, love this Two of Cups. Such a beautiful deck with such a beautiful energy that I feel really added something very unique to my collection. And I'm going to continue to work with it, I'm sure, for several years to come. It's just that special. So I actually have 2 decks tied for 4th place. I feel like they're a little similar, and they're both darker decks, and I couldn't pick which one I wanted to include because I both like them so much. So we've got a 4th place tie, and the first deck that is tied for 4th place, I am putting the box together now, is the Murder of Crows by Corrado Roy. This is published by Lo Scarabeo. I got this January of last year, so I've worked with it very extensively. And because of that, the cardstock is definitely a little warped. I am more of a heavy-handed shuffler, but I also do really baby my decks. And you'll find that other decks on this list that I've worked with just as much have not warped to this extent, with one exception, which I'll be speaking to. So, you know, this is just the Lo Scarabeo quality. I might repurchase this deck and use this deck for clients, and then have another deck that I baby for myself. This is the guidebook. Typical, disappointing, leaves so much to be desired guidebook from Lo Scarabeo. This is how much you're getting in English. So it's a little deceiving. And I will say, you know, normally I say throw your Lo Scarabeo guidebooks in the trash. I enjoy the card definitions. They're more poetic. Like, listen to this Three of Cups. In the wild places of the world, you will find your tribe. You teach them your songs and learn theirs in return. They will allow you all of your needed fictions and accept the masks you have chosen to wear. Like, the actual definitions for this deck, they're so poetic and evocative that I wish this was a better guidebook. And I find myself not coming to this guidebook, even though I enjoy the descriptions that you're getting, because I hate how it's laid out. One of my biggest pet peeves as a reader is when we're just laying out and organizing the minor arcana, like every which way. There's a structure to the minor arcana. It is wands, cups, swords, pentacles. And it's just chaos. I think like swords is the last arcana like listed. So when I'm finding card definitions, I often get frustrated by the fact that they're not organized properly. And that keeps me from, doing a daily draw and then reading the card book meaning every time I use this deck, if I'm doing it in more of a daily draw and journaling way. But I do think if you are somebody that enjoys consulting the guidebook, that there's some wisdom here. It's just laid out in a way that's very frustrating. Now to the cards. So this is the other black and white deck on this list. And honestly, the reason why it took me a while to invest as Tarot of the Abyss is because I was like, oh, I already have Murder of Crows. But these decks could not be more different. And out of all of the decks on this list, I feel like this one has like the most unique, immersive world. Like there is world building in this deck. Love this Eight of Swords. Like this deck is a portal. It just pulls you into another world is the best way that I can describe it. And, similarly to, so good, Tarot of the Abyss, it's so unique. There's nothing else like it on the market. And so I so enjoy the energy of this deck, the feeling of this deck, the world of this deck, even in cards like this. Like this is the Strength card. This isn't as much of a deviation from traditional Rider-Waite Strength cards as maybe some of the other cards in this deck. But even with it not being so much of a deviation, just the coloring and the tone and the mood, it's a whole different Strength card. It's so unique. And there is this like somber, like moody, gothic feel to this deck that I just think it's fun. It's juicy, to use that word. That word can be overused a little bit, but you know what I mean. It's not a shallow deck. It's so good. And, as somebody that works with crow medicine, crows and wolves being the two animal guides that I really work with in my personal spiritual practice, this deck just means a little more to me. So, I would say this is a shadow work deck. I would say that this would be a deck to use to work with a darker face of deity. Some of the cards in this deck that I typically view as being more negative cards in the deck, I feel I work with a little bit differently. And then this is like the Six of Swords. Like this Six of Swords in this deck, I interpret as, okay, maybe somebody's giving you something, but there's an ulterior motive. So I have a really unique relationship with this deck and ways that I don't normally or I normally wouldn't immediately interpret a card. This deck and I have a little bit of an understanding. So I feel like this deck can have more of a shadow quality to these cards. Like the Six of Pentacles is usually, oh my gosh, you're getting assistance. Someone's helping you out with something. Maybe you're receiving some financial aid. Something benefic is coming. But when I draw this Six of Swords, sometimes it's like, be careful, accept that gift, but there might be strings attached. So you definitely use this deck for clients if they want to talk about specifically toxic families, toxic family structures, people that have more like narcissistic parents, things like that. That's what they want to talk about. This deck comes forward a lot to work with. Though I would say, it's not scary. It's not scary. Like if you're somebody that hasn't worked with a lot of, darker artwork, don't be scared. It's going to tell you the truth, but the Dark Goddess, she's compassionate. And she has some medicine that we need sometimes. And when we're looking for that medicine of, okay, let's actually know the truth. Let's go, that's bypass the bullshit. I want to know the truth. This is a good deck for that. And I love this Seven of Cups. To me, this is the Seven of Cups. so good. You know, buy the deck for this card. Like it's so good. So that is The Murder of Crows by Coretta Roy. Tied for 4th place is, let me grab it, Tarot of Vampires by Ian Daniels. I actually think I purchased both of these decks at the same time. I both got them in winter of last year. I was looking for some more darker decks. I was doing a lot of deep excavation work with the tarot. And if we're going to talk about Tarot of Vampires, we have to talk about this guidebook, because this is the best guidebook to tarot I have ever come across in my entire life. I would say the Tarot of the Spirit guidebook by Pamela Eakins is, it's close to this, but Pamela Eakins is so dense, she's so wordy that I feel like this is more accessible. I love this guidebook because we're not just going into Rider-Waite Smith. We're also going into some of the Thoth, Toth, however you want to pronounce it, meanings as well. And we're also talking about the Kabbalistic Tree of Life and how tarot is correlated to that. So it goes really deep. It's a wonderful educational tool. If you've never gone that deep in tarot before, this is a very accessible and well-written guide to that. And I'm just going to show you what you get. Okay, so, you know, there's card spreads, kind of card meaning, introduction, and then with the cards, you get, okay, so you get like the alchemy. So, you know, Mercury ruled, Venus and Mars united, that's for the lovers. Trump of Gemini, you're getting all the, you know, the correlations to astrology, etc. And then you're getting the correlations to the Tree of Life. So Bina with Tippereth on the Tree of Life. And then you're getting some kindred spirits, which is just other energies that are similar in tone to the energy of that card. And then you're getting the essence. So some keywords. So for the lovers, a union of opposites, deepest love, devotion, establishing bonds, duality, so on and so forth. And then you are getting like an actual card description. You're getting a shadow description. And then, wait, I missed a page. Okay, so you're getting the message of the deck, like the card description, and then you're getting analysis and symbolism. That's what I was looking for. So then there's a whole other part that just where the deck creator, Ian Daniels, goes into the symbolism of each thing he chose. So every little piece in the card imagery is on purpose. And then you're getting the shadow. So this is what I would call like a study deck, a learning deck. Love these backings. And I really enjoyed using this deck to deepen my study of tarot, because I'm a nerd and I love to do that. Now, you know, the artwork is, the artwork can be pretty campy. I'm not going to lie to you. I enjoy it. I lived in New Orleans for 8 years, and I have memories of reading Anne Rice books and biking through the Garden District and feeling the magic and the vampirism of New Orleans. And this brings me to that place, and I love this sun. And so, and you know, I love me some, you know, some mythology, some folklore. Like I wouldn't say I'm the biggest vampire fan in the world, but, you know, I grew up on fantasy books. So while I would say that doesn't have quite the immersive world that I just want to tumble into the way that Murder of Crows does, like I enjoy the landscape of this deck. Though it definitely can get a little silly and campy at times, but in a way that I enjoy, like in a way a good vampire movie, like the way Anne Rice is campy, you know? And this deck is really unique. You know, there's no, it's like the opposite of a pip deck. Like the minor arcana is, you know, it's all figures and vampires. And I love this 10 of Grails. I think this is such an accurate depiction of really what the 10 of Grails is. I feel like that's a very misunderstood card in the tarot. So just this deck has a lot to offer. Even if you aren't the biggest fan of the artwork, I think that if you are interested in the study of tarot, this would be a good one for you. When it comes to, you know, how I use this deck a lot for love and relationship readings for my clients. And I find that it is really suited to that, especially if we're talking about like, is this person cheating on me? Do they really like me? Why did they ghost me? I have a feeling they're seeing somebody else. So like it makes sense, like vampires, they're seductive, they're lusty, and it reads really clearly when it comes to those questions. So I'm the Queen of Wands. That is my significator in the tarot. And look at this Queen of Wands. She is me. She looks nothing like me, but as somebody that the tarot has decided I'm the Queen of Wands over the years in my journey of reading tarot, I have a soft spot for this card, and I feel like this is so the Queen of Wands. I love her. So that is the Tarot of Vampires by Ian Daniels. I probably will be working with this deck a lot in January, because I find that through the winter months, especially January and February, I make space to go inward and to do some tarot study and to do some inner journeying, and I'm very much needing that right now. I can feel it. So once the holidays are over, I can see myself spending a lot more time with this deck, as I did last winter. So that is the Tarot of Vampires by Ian Daniels. It's published by Llewellyn. It's a mass market deck. The book is called Phantasmagoria. The book is a separate name, which I don't know. It's interesting. This is fun. It's fun. This is a fun deck because there's just so much to explore, and there's so deep that you can go. And if you're looking for a daily draw and journal, and you're a reader, and you enjoy the intellectual study of tarot, this would be a good one. Or if you're just a newer to the journey and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go deeper. What is the Tree of Life? How is it related to the tarot? That type of entry point, or this would be a good entry point into that type of material. Okay, third on the list, The Goddess of Love Tarot by Gabby Herstick. I have a full review for this on my channel. I'm not gonna lie to you, the way these cards have warped already really bothers me. Like, a little warping for me is normal, but I've actually worked with this deck so much more than I've worked with this deck, and like, look at the difference. Shuffled this more, worked with this way more. In my mind, it's a little unacceptable. I think I love this deck so much though. I'm just gonna buy another copy, and I'll use this for clients, and I'll heavy-handed shuffle it to my heart's content. And then when it is no longer even viable that way, I'll like use this for like collage art. Sorry, my phone just notified me of something, and I'm not gonna start refilming this. So I'm going to buy a new version of this, or like I'm going to buy a new copy of this, and then just do overhand shuffling with it. And if you do purchase this deck, I just encourage you to be really delicate with it, and maybe just overhand shuffle it, because this is so sad, and it makes me so sad. And I think it's actually deterred me from working with it lately, because I just like look at it and I'm like, it's so warped. But besides the cardstock quality, I love this deck. One of the reasons why I love this deck is because I feel the guidebook has a lot to offer. So this is published by Tarcher Perigee. I think that's an imprint of Penguin. And it says a book and deck for embodying the erotic divine feminine. And this guidebook is definitely slanted towards that. And so every card meaning you're going to be getting is through the lens of the divine feminine, the goddess, eroticism, love, sex magic, and every card has an affirmation and has a journal question. And I just really like the guidebook. I really like interpreting tarot through the lens of love, sex magic, and the divine feminine. I think there was nothing like this on the market when it came out, and I think it really has so much to offer. And I love the artwork. As a priestess, as somebody that is on a divine feminine path, and pretty much, I wouldn't say exclusively, but spend most of my spiritual my time in spiritual work, connecting in with the divine feminine, this is a really special deck to me. And I really love the artwork, and I really love the minor arcana. I have a whole review on this, so I don't want to totally repeat myself, but look at this, lovers. But this deck just has so much to offer, and it's so special to me because it's so close to my personal journey with the tarot. You know, I will say this is called the Goddess of Love Tarot, but I do not find this to be a love and relationship deck. I find this much more to be a deck that is suited to connecting in with your own divine feminine. I love this devil. With divine feminine energy, and particularly like the red goddess. And if you're healing sexual shame, or if you're looking to, you know, begin a path of glamour magic, doing self-love work, like I think this deck would be really good for self-love. That's what this deck feels like. It's like what sweet spot would be. So if you're looking for like a deck to read relationships, I would probably actually get Tarot of Vampires over this one. But if you are drawn to the divine feminine, this is one that I would pick up. And, you know, and I'm so in love with the goddess. So, you know, every major arcana being a face of goddess, like this deck just speaks to my soul. It sings to my soul, and I love it so much. And that's why I will be purchasing another copy and just only overhand shuffling with it. And it's worth it because I like this deck so much. But if you can, you know, navigate the cardstock quality, I encourage you to have this deck in your collection if you work with tarot and you consider yourself a priestess. Okay. Coming in at number 2, we have The Mind's Eye Tarot by Olivia Rose. It is published by US Games. Like, look at this. Like, this deck, if I was a deck, look at these colors. This would be me. This deck feels like my species, I guess is the best way I could describe it. This is the guidebook. You know, the guidebook's pretty, but I would say you're getting pretty elementary card meanings. So if you are an experienced practitioner, I doubt you'll really be spending much time with it. If you're a beginner, this might be a guidebook you want to work with to really learn the basics. But this is no Tarot of Vampires Phantasmagoria guidebook, but it's cute and it's quality. And I love a bigger guidebook like this. Like, I would so much prefer this over this. Okay, let me show you the cards. These are the card backings. We got some gilded edges. I don't know if I've shared this deck on this channel before, but I love this deck, and this deck and I work really well together. The cardstock's like really unique. I love the black. And I will say, you know, this isn't so much like a Tarot of the Abyss. Like, it's gonna totally deepen and shift and turn your view of these energies upside down. But there's just something so, my light's kind of glaring on these cards. There's just something so alluring to me about these images. I'm just so drawn to this artwork. And I would say, out of all of the decks on this list, I use this deck and the deck that's at number 1 the most in my daily client readings. So this deck and I just have a really special relationship. And I love the artwork. And as a channeling tool, it reads super clearly for me. And when I first got it, I was a little concerned. I was like, this deck is so cute. It's like so aesthetically pleasing to me. But sometimes decks can be just that for me. And then I feel like I can never super connect in. But I love this moon. This is probably one of my favorite moons. But this deck is powerful, and it's been powerful for me. And like I said, like I feel like this deck and I come from the same place. Like I feel like I look like these little beings in this deck. I love this Ten of Swords. And so, you know, I really enjoy working with her. So if you don't bananas love the artwork, you maybe could skip this one. You know, unlike Tarot of Vampires, where I'm like, oh, the guidebook's so good, you're gonna get so much out of the meanings. Like, even if you don't like the artwork, it might be worth it. You know, for me, this deck is all about the feeling tone and the color palette and the artwork. So if you aren't drawn to that, this maybe would be one to skip. But if you are drawn to it, you'll love it. You'll love it. I love this deck. Okay, so that is the Mind's Eye Tarot by Olivia Rose. Number 1 on this list, I got this in January of 2023, and this is also my favorite tarot deck of all time. The Ritual Tarot by Tierra May. This is the box it comes in, or it came in when I purchased it. This is the guidebook that came with it. This version is no longer for purchase. The author is Tierra May, if I didn't already say that. All the other decks that I have mentioned in this video that have been on this list are mass market. This is going to be the only independent deck. This is an investment for sure. I believe it retails around $100. Best $100 I ever spent. I'm obsessed with this deck. But just keep that in mind. And I've been using this deck almost daily since I purchased it. I want to say I purchased this one in January as well. If not, it was like the first week of February. And we've really stayed intact. Like, this deck is in great shape for how much I've used it. That's really incredible. Like I said, this current edition is out of print. There is a newer edition on her Etsy, on her website, that is available for purchase. It has the card titles on the back, so it's different backings. I think the newer backings, I actually think they're cuter. But this was the version that was for sale when I purchased this deck. And I will say, I just haven't been in a place financially where I can invest in the newer edition of this deck, though I would like to have it at some point, just because this, like, I can't imagine not having this deck. So I feel like I need a second copy just for safety reasons, and also, like, I just love this deck so much, I want every single version. And I don't know if I've ever had that experience with a deck before, you know. While I am a tarot lover and addict, I'm still picky and choosy about what I bring into my collection. I'm not consuming just for the sake of consumption. So I don't always need every version of everything, but I kind of feel like I want every version of everything. Just haven't had a chance to get the newer version of this yet. And, you know, I love that this deck doesn't have titles. And, you know, from the moment I opened this deck, I felt an instant connection with it. Like I said, 8 of Cups is one of my favorite cards. And look at this 8 of Cups. And I just feel like this deck, like Tarot of the Abyss, this deck just goes so deep. This is the Strength card. It goes so deep with the meanings and just the energy, the vibration off of this deck is so, like, I can't even verbalize how much I enjoy working with this deck. It's so lush. It's like this deck is like, it's so lush, it's so deep, it's so indulgent. It's just everything I could ever want in a tarot deck and more. Like, I didn't know a tarot deck could be this good. This is the Seven of Swords. I use it more than any other deck in my client readings. It reads really accurately, really intuitively for me. Definitely use it as a channeling device. There's something about like the lack of titles that I feel like actually helps me drop in a deeper way. Oh, it's so good. That's the Six of Cups. And you know, there's like Egyptian motifs. I feel like when it just comes to like who I am, my spiritual identity, I love this deck. You know, it's a bigger size, so it is a little harder to shuffle, but I don't mind. And, you know, I really can't imagine my life without this deck. You know, I think you could use it for all types of readings. I think that this would, I use it for daily draws. I use it for client readings. I've used it for collective readings on my Instagram. So it's super all-purpose for me, very versatile as a reader. And, you know, I've been working with it for over a year now, and the love hasn't died. It's deepened. And if I could only read with one deck on this list, it would be this one. So, you know, we're deeply in love. And I would say, you know, I don't read reversals with this deck. I read reversals with a lot of decks because of the backings. I don't know. We just don't read reversals with this deck. So, you know, if you're on the fence about this one and you're in a place where you can invest, I think that there's no way you would ever regret this one. And just the quality, everything about it. Like, I love indie decks so much because I love this Nine of Wands. I just feel like, you know, you're investing in a tool that's it's more quality, and I'm a Taurus, and so, you know, just I'm a little bougie. And so I love this Three of Swords. This is probably my favorite Three of Swords. And so if you're a little bougie and you like lush, opulent, indulgent things in your life, this might be your deck. So that is the Ritual Tarot by Tara May. And those are all of my favorite decks of 2023. So thank you so much for spending the time with me as I went through this list, and thank you for the opportunity to gush about these beautiful decks that have been my companions and mirrors, some for the entire year of 2023. And if you've been looking for a new tarot deck to add to your collection, I think all of these would be wonderful additions to your collection. As always, I am sending you so much love, and I'm wishing you well.